When I was recognized by the Sue family, my parents told me to get along peacefully with the fake heiress and not to disrupt the family. My brother also warned me that as long as I didn't cause trouble, he would reluctantly acknowledge me as his sister. The system cheered me on from the side, saying it could help me use my inner voice to expose the fake heiress and win favor. I stroked my chin, showing that I was tempted. Since hearing inner thoughts can earn affection, let's all just shower each other with affection. When the elegantly dressed couple stepped into the hot pot restaurant, I was there, wearing a weary, forced smile while swiftly clearing the plates. The system was still chattering away in my head about the tragic fate of the true heiress of the wealthy family. Can the life of the rich be any more miserable than mine right now? I held a large tray and glanced at the reflective TV screen. Hey. My back was hunched like a giant turtle. I'm willing. Please think of a way to let me go back to the wealthy family and suffer. I am willing to return to the wealthy family, even as the unloved true heiress. Send me back to the wealthy family immediately to be misunderstood and hurt. I can't wait. Out of the corner of my eye, my biological parents are putting on a textbook display of sorrow. The woman covers her mouth with both hands, inadvertently revealing a massive diamond ring, and says, "Oh my, how could this be?" The man immediately pulled her into his embrace, patting her back and gently coaxing, "Darling, be strong, we've found her." The watch on his wrist reflected a blinding white light, a perfectly standard and wealthy man and woman. The churning butter sizzled and steamed, making my stomach cramp and churn with acid. I thought this was my life, but I never expected to be the real daughter who was switched at birth. Damn it, I've long suspected I wasn't their biological child. They were still grieving. But I couldn't wait any longer. I stepped forward and spoke first. "Please come in. How many guests are in your party?" The couple finally stopped their sorrow, and the man spoke up. "We'd like to talk to you. Is that okay?" I smiled faintly and followed them outside, getting into the car, a vehicle whose single tire could cost as much as my life. "Child, we are actually your biological parents." They clasped their hands together, each giving the other courage. I nodded to show I heard. "Child, why aren't you surprised at all?" My calmness made them quite dissatisfied. They exchanged glances before turning back to look at me. I pointed at my own face and asked, "I look exactly like you. Isn't that enough to prove something?" My face and the woman sitting across from me were like carbon copies, making one wonder if the author was too lazy to describe the appearance of the villainess. Besides, I've suspected for a long time that I wasn't their biological child. As I spoke, I rolled up my sleeves to show them the scars from cigarette burns, the gashes from broken bottles, all scattered across the arms I had used to protect my face. "Oh my goodness," she covered her mouth again, revealing an enormous diamond ring. Biological parents would never treat their child like that. Seeing her fear, I rolled down my sleeve and calmly repeated the words, "Child, it won't happen again. Mom and Dad have found you, and we're here to take you home." Mom held me in her arms and gently stroked my back. "What about her?" I asked, nestled in her embrace. "Who?" Mom was somewhat surprised, meeting her puzzled gaze. I said bluntly, "The one who has taken over the nest." "Ah, host, you can't speak so directly. You need to use your inner voice to expose the fake heiress's true nature, to slap her in the face. Only then can you gain favor." The system was so anxious it was practically sweating. I was pushed away from my mother's embrace. She frowned and said, "How could you think that way? It's not her fault." "That's right. Children are all innocent. Your father and I hope our whole family can get along well." Dad chimed in, "Host, you're too impatient. You need to wait for the plugin to finish loading, then use your inner voice to remind them of the fake daughter's wickedness." The system chimed in as well. "The harm I've suffered is so obvious, yet they're still pretending to be blind. What good is an inner voice anyway?" I told the system with a forced smile. "If you really think this is a good thing, then let everyone hear each other's thoughts and spoil each other." While the fake heiress enjoyed wealth and luxury, all I had was a moldy bedroom and tattered clothes, and an alcoholic dad, a gambling mom. And damn, the fact that I didn't grow up to be a demon child is already the height of benevolence. Plugin loading 99%, reloading, plugin 20%, 90%, loading complete. The system was still loading, but the atmosphere in the car was unusually awkward. Genetics can't beat environment. Without a higher education, they really can't hold their own in polite society. After a while, the voice continued, "Is my makeup smudged? Why is he looking at me like that? I was supposed to go for a beauty treatment today, but it's too late now." The voice continued to mutter, "Why is she being so rude today?" Another voice sounded. Both of them were stunned. "Oh my God, she didn't seem to open her mouth." Silence is the atmosphere between us. Before they could figure out what was going on, the car stopped at the entrance of The Sue family's mansion. After exchanging a glance, my parents pulled me out of the car and walked into this luxurious, high-value mansion. Mom pointed to the boy sitting on the sofa and said, "This is your brother, Susie Chang." Then she pointed to the girl, "This is your sister, Susie Jing." After the introductions, she turned to me and asked, "And you, me?" I pointed at myself and asked her, "Shouldn't I be the one called Susie Jing?" Mom was taken aback, gripping my hand tightly as a sorrowful expression crossed her face. She said, "Child, are you blaming me for this?" Dad immediately supported her, scolding me angrily. "How could you speak to Mom like that? You've hurt her feelings. Apologize right now." Susie Ching and Susie Jing also stood up, looking at me with shared indignation. Wow, what a good man, I marveled in my heart. My inner voice greatly pleased my father, and he sternly scolded me, "No matter who it is, no one is allowed to make my wife sad, even if you are my own child. If you make her sad, I won't acknowledge you as my daughter. The Sue family doesn't need a child like that." Susie Ching immediately chimed in, "That's right, if you make Mom unhappy, then I won't acknowledge you as my sister." Susie Jing was even more tearful. "Sister, I know you've suffered a lot of grievances. I'll leave right now. Please don't upset Mom, okay? She's a really, really good person." I stood there, feeling a bit speechless. It seems like I didn't even say anything, right? How did things escalate so quickly? Is this family made of white phosphorus? "Okay, Dad, Mom, I know I was wrong." I obediently apologized, blinking my big, watery eyes as I asked pleadingly, "Can we eat now? My tummy is hungry. Damn it, I've been starving all day. I can't even muster the energy to get worked up." Seeing how sensible I was being, they finally nodded and accepted me. I sat at the dining table, looking around the entire villa, silently thinking to myself, "This house is really big, must be worth a lot of money. There are even servants at home. This is pure enjoyment of life." Along with my thoughts praising the house, everyone else's inner voices also involuntarily surfaced. "Why is this child so ill-mannered, squirming around on the chair like that?" Looking closely, she really resembles her mother. For the Sun family's marriage alliance, why not send her? But she'll need some proper training first. Can't have her embarrassing me. My little sister is upset, all because of this wretched woman. I'll make sure to give her a good lesson later. Damn it, we're both Dad's children, so why is this bitch prettier than me? She looks exactly like her low-life mother. How did she even survive growing up in the slums? Who's talking? What's that sound? Wow, we're having lobster for dinner tonight. What does it mean that we're all Dad's biological children? Did Zijing say that? Is she insulting me? Zijing is insulting me. How could she think of me that way? Wait, who's talking? It doesn't seem to be that dead woman, does it? She's eating with oil all over her mouth and still sucking her fingers. The Sun family situation is a bit complicated. The young master has sadistic tendencies. People often go in standing and come out lying down. Last time, he killed a female classmate, and it was almost impossible to cover up, which made Mr. Sun furious. He forbade him from bullying classmates again. But he didn't say anything about not having a girlfriend. If she really catches the young master's eye, then the land in the southern part of the city. Wow, there are even big abalones. Who on earth is talking? I'm about to lose my mind. Is old Sue having an affair? I thought something was off between him and that secretary last time. Did she seduce him? Damn that vixen. Oh no. I can hear other people's thoughts. Can they hear mine too? My secrets are about to be exposed. What should I do? Shamshwang greens, sticky rice. Everyone hastily made up some excuses and fled the dining table as if running for their lives. After eating and drinking my fill, I casually found a bedroom and slept soundly until dawn. My refreshed and energetic appearance formed a stark contrast to the members of the Sue family. The servant said that last night, my sister slept in the servants' quarters. Susie Jing stirred the porridge in front of her, her face full of concern, but her inner thought said, as expected, she's not fit for the grand stage. A lady's body with a maid's fate. I rolled my eyes and asked her, "So concerned about me, have a crush on me?" Susie Jing choked, glanced at her parents and brother, then spoke softly, "No, I meant that I've taken over your identity as the older sister, and now that you're back, the bedroom should be returned to you." This pitiful appearance made the Sue family's hearts ache. "What do you mean by letting? You're also a daughter of the Sue family." Mom glared at me. My brother angrily pointed at my nose. "There are so many rooms in the house. Do you have to sleep in your sister's room? Why is it flaring up again?" I was utterly baffled and continued eating my breakfast, my inner thoughts drifting out. "I mean, sis, yesterday the illegitimate daughter called you a bitch, and you're still acting out this mother-daughter affection. She really wasn't wrong about you." Upon hearing this, Mom trembled with rage all over. She wanted to curse me but couldn't find a way to start. After all, the ability to hear others' thoughts is just too bizarre, especially Since they have no idea how much they've said or how much the other person has heard, they can only pretend not to hear each other, burying their heads in the sand like ostriches, terrified of disrupting their peaceful lives. Dad, Mom, my brother, and I are off to school. Seeing the situation take a turn, Su Zijing quickly stood up and found an excuse to step out. Dad, Mom, I also need to go to school. I'll go handle the transfer procedures today, I quickly chimed in as well. Play is play, jokes are jokes, but don't mess around with studies, Mom frowned and said. Transferring schools? I don't think it's necessary, is it? High school is a critical period. You can just continue at your current school. There's no point in talking to someone whose heart is so biased it's practically in their throat. I ignored her words and turned to look at Dad. I want to transfer schools. When I was studying at Sanjong, my grades never fell below the top 50 in my grade. If I go to a better school, my grades will improve even more. I'll have more opportunities for development, and it will be better for the Su family too. I emphasized the part about it being better for the Su family. Dad had just been silent, but now he was calculating in his mind. Although no, 3 high school can't compare to an international high school, it's still a key municipal school. If she really hasn't fallen out of the top 50 in her grade, as she claims, sending her to an international high school early would be a good thing. She's pretty and studies well. If she catches the attention of the Yen master from the Sun family, I won't have to go through the trouble of making connections. Even if the Yen master from the Sun family isn't interested, it would still be good if other Yen masters or ladies take notice of her. After finishing his calculations, he spoke gently. All right, I'll have someone take care of the procedures for you in a moment. The procedures were quickly completed, and Su Zijing and I were placed in the same class. The moment I stepped into the classroom, it happened to be the long break between classes. The teacher casually pointed to a seat for me. Just as I had moved my desk and sat down, a group of unfriendly classmates approached. The leader rudely kicked the leg of my stool, asking with a look of disdain, "So you're the Su family's illegitimate daughter?" I lifted my head and replied slowly, "Did Su Zijing tell you that?" Seemingly provoked by my attitude, she pointed at my nose and yelled, "Who cares who said it? I'm telling you, I hate fakes like you the most. Children of mistresses should just die." The surrounding classmates all wore expressions of watching a good show, but Su Zijing was nowhere to be seen. "I'm talking to you. Are you deaf?" Seeing that I didn't respond, she grew even angrier and reached up to grab my collar. I held her hand and sincerely advised, "Your liver fire is too strong. Have some loofah soup tonight." Amidst the laughter, several voices chimed in. The Zhou family hates illegitimate children the most. She really walked right into that one, being used as a pawn without even realizing it, assaulting a classmate in a place with surveillance. Didn't you see that no one behind her made a move? They're all waiting for a show. Drag her to the restroom, you idiot. The restroom, right. Zhou, who was gripping my collar, suddenly understood and said to me, "Come on, let's go to the restroom." "Ah, who's talking? What's that sound?" Everyone looked around in panic, and I also turned my head, shouting at the top of my lungs, "Su Zijing, is that you? Is that you?" Su Zijing. Su Zijing hid by the door, hearing my voice, and instinctively wanted to run, but under the watchful eyes of everyone, she had no choice but to brace herself and walk in. "Su Zijing, you're back. Is she your family's illegitimate daughter?" Classmate Zhou turned to look at Su Zijing. "Was it her who bullied you and tried to take your things?" No. You've misunderstood, Zhou." Under everyone's gaze, Su Zijing blushed like a little rabbit, stammering in denial. "Don't be afraid. If she dares to bully you again, she'll have to face my fists," Zhou warned me fiercely. Su Zijing's eyes were still red, looking pitiful and delicate, like a lily swaying in the wind, yet her inner thoughts surfaced. "Damn it, that Zhou woman is such a violent brute. Why is she so impulsive? She even asked me to help deliver a love letter to my brother." Hilarious. Just seeing her makes me sick to my stomach. If they got together, wouldn't I have to get my stomach pumped? The voice made Zhou freeze in place. She released my collar in disbelief and walked over to confront Su Zijing. "Su Zijing, what are you saying?" "I didn't say anything." Su Zijing's face turned pale as she forced herself to answer calmly. "You said Su Zijing had feelings for me. That's why I wrote the love letter, but my classmate Zhou wasn't buying it." She pointed at me and asked, "I treated you as a friend and helped you deal with the illegitimate daughter, and you actually said that about me." Su Zijing followed the direction of her finger and looked at me, her inner thoughts involuntarily surfacing again. "Damn it, why didn't I just strangle her to death after swapping the babies back then? I should have let her die." "You never expected it, did you? I am Dad's biological child, trying to take what's mine. You're just daydreaming." The classroom was dead silent, then suddenly erupted with a flood of inner thoughts. "Damn, who's talking?" Illegitimate child and legitimate child swapped. Holy cow, what a juicy scandal. I'm eating this up. Su Zijing is actually that kind of person. All that gentleness and understanding she shows normally is just an act. So, does the Su family know about this? Are there any other children? Of course she knows. Didn't you hear her say she's also Dad's biological child? Maybe it was her own father who switched them. Everyone covered their mouths, exchanging meaningful glances. If you couldn't hear their inner thoughts, it would look like the whole class was beatboxing. Su Zijing's face turned from pale to red, then from red to green. She pointed at me, gnashing her teeth. It's you, isn't it? Every time you show up, there are these strange voices. It happened yesterday, and today, suddenly, her mouth was forcefully covered, leaving her only able to make muffled MMPH sounds. Don't speak. We still want to keep listening to the gossip. Everyone spoke in unison, uttering these words. Su Zijing went home crying, occasionally letting out a few curses directed at me. She didn't bother hiding it anymore, cursing out loud with such a rich vocabulary that it made Mother Su furrow her brows. She looked at Su Zijing in confusion. Zijing, how can you talk like that? A young lady shouldn't be spewing such foul language. I was speechless beside them. I had just been torn to shreds by her words. Yet all you care about is whether she's using foul language. She's a monster. Drive her out. As long as she's here, this family will never have peace. Su Zijing pointed at me, screaming hysterically. I had only been here for 2 days, yet she had transformed from a proper wealthy heiress into a dark-hearted illegitimate child. She wished she could kill me right now. Su Zijing stood by without saying a word, his lips pressed tightly together, but deep down, he was also hoping to drive me away. Even though she is my real sister, ever since she arrived, this family has been falling apart. It would have been better if she never existed. Su's mother looked at me, then at her children standing on either side of her, and made up her mind. Nanny Zhang, help her pack her things. Nanny Zhang agreed verbally, but inwardly she muttered, this woman has lost her mind, driving her own daughter away and treating the fake one like a treasure. Su's mother opened her mouth to retort, but no words came out. Because it was the truth, the system was hopping mad in my head, scolding me. I told you to use inner thoughts to slap them in the face, not to let others slap yours. You could have peacefully exposed the fake heiress's true colors with your inner voice and gained favor, but you just wouldn't listen. Now look at you, about to be kicked out, gaining favor through inner voice. What a joke. What's this about the fake heiress plotting against me? Spies in Dad's company. Mom's favorite beauty salon using counterfeit products. Brother's friend turning out to be a big shot in the future. I used my inner voice to help them profit and avoid risks, all just to replace Su Zijing and win their affection. Want something so elusive and intangible? Am I out of my mind? Just keep being stubborn. You're about to be kicked out as it is. The system was exasperated. Without affection, you can't complete the mission. You'll be nothing. Then just wait and see. I crossed my arms and raised an eyebrow, silently counting down 5, 4, 3 before I could reach 1. Father Su strode in with large steps. He looked at the noisy crowd and frowned, asking, what's going on here, Dad? Su Zijing glanced at his mother and said hesitantly, we discussed letting her stay outside for a while. Su's father directly refused. No. Facing everyone's puzzled gazes, he spoke up, Aunt Zhang, take the young lady's things to the 3rd room on the 2nd floor. She'll be staying there from now on. Dad, that's my music room. How can you let this wretch stay there, Su? Zijing immediately shouted. Hearing this, Father Su thought for a moment and ordered, move Zijing's things out. From now on, that will be the young lady's room. This is the Su family. My word is law. After saying this, ignoring everyone's shocked gazes, he called to me, Xian, come with me to the study. Hey, the family-run workshop emperor even gave me a name. Xian, have a seat. Father Su lit a cigarette and gestured for me to sit across from him. Xian, how did you get to know the Shin and Jiang families? I was utterly confused, and my inner voice popped up. Who is this? You don't know him. Father Su was a bit surprised, but then, as if remembering something, he smiled and said, you should get along well with your classmates at school. At the end of this month, there's the Sun family's evening banquet, and I'll take you along. After saying that, he stood up and patted my shoulder. All right, go and rest now. At school, the ability to hear others' inner thoughts seemed to bring a lot of amusement to the people around me. They delight in hearing the dark sides of others, and I have almost become the most popular person in this school. The classmates who were supposed to bully and torment me now avoid me, afraid that others might hear the darkness in their hearts. Unfortunately, there is no escape. Their little cliques have fallen apart upon hearing each other's inner thoughts, and they have begun to turn on one another. Those with powerful backgrounds are not afraid of others hearing their inner thoughts. Instead, they began using me as an experiment. They discovered that wherever Su Zijing was present, everyone's inner thoughts could be heard. As long as I was kept apart from Su Zijing, no inner thoughts would leak out. The classmates began to spontaneously ostracize Su Zijing, locking her in the bathroom and preventing her from attending class. They smeared glue on her chair to humiliate her. I watched it all with cold indifference. Originally, all of this should have been my suffering, but now it had become Su Zijing's. Su Zijing was utterly broken. She didn't dare to hate anyone else, so every day she could only fix me with a sinister glare. Hating me, gradually, she began to curse Su Zijing and Su's mother, living under the same roof. Her curses and insults reached us at every moment, but everyone tried to act as if nothing was wrong, as though as long as we didn't expose it, we were still a loving family. Su's father was beaming with joy every day because, through me, he had connected with a group of remarkable and influential figures. He confidently believed that everything was under his control, that he was the emperor of this household. The Sun family's evening banquet. As I stepped into the hall, the inner thoughts of the crowd surged toward me like a tide. Is she the biological daughter of the Su family? Can hear everyone's inner thoughts. Really? Wow, she's really beautiful. Why are their voices cursing such foul language? Father Su led me straight to the center of the hall and introduced me to the person standing in the central position. Mr. Sun, this is my youngest daughter, Su Zian. She attends the same school as Yen Master Sun. After saying this, she turned to look at me. Hurry and greet Mr. Sun and Yen Master Sun. Everyone watching the scene had their inner thoughts surface. Did you bring her here for the sake of the Sun family's Yen Master? Tsk. Parents can be truly heartless. Amid the murmurs of gossip, the Yen Master of the Sun family looked at me with great interest. A lecherous smile hung on his face, and he flirted without restraint, right in front of everyone. Su Zian, you're much better looking than Su Zijing. Beside them, Su Zijing's face flushed red with anger, her inner voice cursing. Damn, it's like he's never seen a woman before. The familiarity in his tone made one wonder about the relationship between them. Yen Master Sun swirled his wine glass, his inner thoughts spilling out. Next time you find me a woman, make sure she's just like your sister. As his inner voice echoed, the thoughts of the crowd followed one after another. Wasn't it said there was no evidence that he killed his classmate? Now it's confirmed. The Sun family truly is a den of iniquity, steeped in wickedness through and through. The Su family is a den of wolves and tigers. Their daughter looks so innocent, yet she dares to do such a thing. Isn't she afraid of retribution? Yen Master Sun stepped forward and grabbed my arm, his smile repulsive. This was the Sun family's territory. He believed that even if everyone knew what kind of person he was, they would still curry favor with him and join in his corruption. Sure enough, no one dared to step forward to stop him, pretending not to hear each other's inner thoughts, still smiling and chatting. Just as he was about to drag her away, a voice rang out, "It really is him. My daughter's death was his doing." In the corner, a person who looked like a cleaner clenched their fists, eyes red with emotion. Everyone turned their heads to look, with Yen Master Sun being particularly arrogant. Idiot, so what if you know it's me? What kind of capital does a commoner like you have to oppose me? The inner voice dripped with mockery. The person who looked like a cleaner was visibly agitated, his lips trembling as he tipped 2 steps forward. He seemed to think of something, then stopped in his tracks, his expression turning calm. Yes, I can't fight back, but I poisoned the wine. Everyone here today will die together. Upon hearing this, everyone's faces changed drastically. Some began to gag, trying to run outside, but the main door had been welded shut. Someone collapsed to the ground, vomiting and clutching their stomach as they rolled around in agony. What the Sun family did has nothing to do with us. Yeah, it's not like we did it. The janitor spat in disgust upon hearing this. Not you. You've all done your fair share of dirty deeds. He turned his head and shouted loudly, "I have the antidote here. Whoever can clearly explain how my daughter died will get it. I'll speak." The person clutching his stomach raised his hand and shouted, "It was the Sun family who did it. This isn't the first time either. I have evidence. It's in my home safe." That's right. It's the Sun family. They've covered up for their own younger generation more than once or twice. Your daughter is probably buried near their ancestral home. The old man of the Sun family stepped back in terror, never expecting so many people to know about this. He had never once thought about this matter in his heart. How did everyone find out? As if in response to his shock, a thought echoed in his mind. If you don't want others to know, don't do it in the first place. Even if you don't say it, we know it all too well. And there's the Su family's daughter, who's been getting close to the poor students at school just to pimp them out to these rich kids, someone shouted loudly. Upon hearing this, Su Zijing turned pale, shaking her head and backing away as she said, "It's not me. It really isn't me." The father who had lost his daughter sneered coldly, "My daughter considered you a good friend, and this is how you treat her. At the time, I thought you genuinely pitied me and wanted to help. I never imagined you were in cahoots with them, a wolf in sheep's clothing. Heaven has opened its eyes." allowing me to know who the murderer is. None of you will escape. The Sun family, the Su family, not a single one of you will escape. With that, he pulled out a knife and walked toward the nearest person, Su's father. Su's father collapsed on the ground, desperately pleading, "This has nothing to do with us, Su Zijing. She's not our biological daughter." Yes, Su Ziqing beside me nodded eagerly, not showing a trace of the deep sibling affection he had displayed in front of me. The janitor spat, "You dare say it's not related? A child's misbehavior is the father's fault. Don't think I don't know what you're here for. Today, you would even use your own daughter as a bargaining chip. Is there anything you wouldn't do?" With that, he turned to Su's mother and asked, "Did you know your husband was using his own daughter to curry favor with others?" Su's mother shook her head, unable to utter a single word, but her inner voice surfaced. "Of course I knew, but what could I do? Offend my husband over one daughter?" The voice was so clear it echoed through the banquet hall. The janitor raised the knife to the sky and let out a long, anguished cry. "You bunch of trash, even a vicious tiger doesn't eat its own cubs, yet you not only bully your own daughter, but also torment someone else's. My daughter, she was so young, so outstanding, and you people destroyed her. I'm going to make you trash pay the price." With that, he raised the knife at the critical moment. Stop! The doors of the banquet hall opened, and a group of people in uniforms walked in. The leader approached me and showed his identification. "Hello, I want to report a crime." I stepped forward and said, "The Sun and Su families are colluding, committing murder and dismemberment. I have evidence." Yan Master Sun seemed to finally snap out of it, propping himself up as he said, "Was it you who called the police?" What a pointless question. My eyes darted around as I told the officer, "Sir, I have special abilities." What a joke. What kind of pampering? What kind of good life could compare to a state-provided meal, 5 insurances and a housing fund? Now that's the real deal. Do you understand what a letter of recommendation is? This time, it's at least a third-class merit. I'm quite useful. If you take me back, you won't even need to interrogate the suspects." As if in response to my words, intermittent inner thoughts began to surface. Oh no, I can't control my inner voice. What if I end up spilling everything at the police station? Is the Sun family's murder case about to be investigated? After scanning the room, the police noticed that no one had spoken up. His colleague, who was thinking about what to eat at the cafeteria later, also stepped forward. He cleared his throat and commanded, "Take them all away." Su's father and mother seemed to snap back to reality, cursing loudly, "Su Zijing, you're nothing but a jinx." Yan Master Sun also collapsed on the ground, unable to utter a single word, as he was dragged up and pushed forward. Ignoring the noise behind me, I quickened my pace toward the police car. The system screamed in my mind, "What? The mission is actually completed? No, wait a moment, which step did I miss?" I smiled and told her, seeing through the fake heiress's true colors, "My family is filled with regret and plans to treat me well, but I've already accomplished everything. Besides, because of me, the Su family got to enjoy free state-provided meals. See how much I spoil them." The system cursed. I asked him, "Can the mind reading still be used?" The system fell silent for a moment, then said, "As long as Su Zijing hates you for a day, the ability to hear inner thoughts will remain effective for a day." "That's fine then." I happily hummed a tune as I walked toward the light. In the end, I ended up with a government job, and the Su family ended up with government jobs too. We all have a bright future ahead. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My sister and the hoodlum were intimately engaged, naked in the study. When I walked in on them, my parents were devastated and had the man arrested for attempted rape. My sister resented me for tearing apart what she saw as a destined love. A spiked cup of milk tea she gave me sent me into the remote mountains, where I became a pervert's captive. I tried to escape but failed, and was beaten and tortured to death. The body was also thrown into the pigsty and gnawed by the sow. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day my sister tasted the forbidden fruit. This time, I stopped my parents, closed the door, and let her love flourish. "Be gentle, I'm afraid of pain." "Oh, you're so bad." Julia's voice, filled with gasps and infatuation, drifted up from the crack in her father's study door. Through the gap, one could clearly see the two of them, naked and passionately entangled on her father's desk. Their poses were wild and vivid, their movements bold and intense, with torn clothes scattered across the floor as proof that they were brewing a storm of passion. At this very moment, standing outside the door, my mind is completely blank. I remember clearly, the perverted old man pressed my head into the wooden trough for chopping pig feed and beat me relentlessly. Rotten pig feed filled my nostrils and mouth, yet it couldn't stop the blood gushing from my lips. His knees and elbows struck my back and skull repeatedly, his eyes bulging, yet he didn't stop. "I can do Nothing but feel pain, because all my limbs were shattered by him with the back of a machete. Run now, you worthless scum, what's given to me is mine, dare to run, and I'll make sure you die. As the machete fell, a splash of red burst before my eyes, and then I felt no more pain, my soul left my body, and all I saw was a bloody mess. Even after realizing I was dead, he still wasn't satisfied. He kicked my body several times, spat on it, then picked me up and threw me into the pigsty, leaving my corpse to be devoured by the sow. Floating in midair, I finally saw myself, a bloody, skeletal figure, with a bald head devoid of any hair, so emaciated that one couldn't even tell if I had been a man or a woman. I just love the study room, it's thrilling. My thoughts were interrupted by Bob's voice, and I realized I had been reborn on the day Julia tasted the forbidden fruit. This time, I chose to let it be. Wendy, haven't you found the receipt yet? You're returning this piano lesson today, whether you like it or not. A wild boar dreaming of fine rice. Know your place. Dad, unable to wait for me to find the receipt for the refund, stormed back in, his face filled with anger. The two people in the room panicked and hid, filled with terror, but the study was simply furnished, leaving no place to hide except under the desk. Clutching their clothes, the two huddled under the desk, trembling with fear. In my past life, at this moment, I stood dumbfounded at the door, unsure of what to do, and was eventually caught by my father, who sensed something was wrong. The scandal was exposed. Julia got slapped twice, and Bob was sent to prison for attempted rape by the best lawyer their father could find. Julia was so frightened by her father's anger that she fell silent and didn't utter a single word in defense of her lover. Afterwards, they resented me for reporting the truth. A long-planned drugged milk tea knocked me out on the way to camping, and I was loaded onto a prearranged truck, sent into the endless mountains from which I could never escape. Enduring unspeakable torture, I met a tragic end, only to be fed to pigs. But what about her? With all the love from our parents and the money Grandma left for my education, she had a great time for a while. At this thought, I curved my lips, closed the door, and immediately rushed downstairs. Braving my parents' irritation, I cautiously apologized. Mom, Dad, I'm here. Sorry to keep you waiting. It's just piano lessons. I promise you, I won't take them anymore. Let's go and cancel the enrollment right now. They wanted to use the money Grandma spent on my piano lessons to enroll Julia in her short-lived passion for painting classes. In my past life, I refused, but in the end, not only were the lessons forcibly cancelled, but my parents also made me skip school for a week to kneel at home and reflect. This time, I know better. The two who were about to erupt in anger saw how well I was towing the line, their eyes flickering before they held back, only muttering, always losing things, never giving us peace of mind. Can't you learn from your sister and be a bit more sensible? I nodded in agreement. Of course my sister is sensible, wanting you to hold your grandson early and enjoy the good life of 3 generations under one roof, with no one to disturb them. The passionate fire burned fiercely all afternoon, but the thug Bob wasn't satisfied with that. As he dressed and left, he casually took my father's branded pen from the study. It was a keepsake my grandfather left for my father, not valuable in monetary terms, but of extraordinary significance, but was thrown by Bob to the front desk of a foot massage parlor to please his ex-girlfriend. I know all this so clearly because Bob's cousin was my deskmate, who would excitedly recount his cousin's glorious deeds all day long. Of course, he didn't yet know that his cousin's new fling was my sister Julia. He would gesture animatedly while describing his cousin's peak performance, how he struggled through an entire afternoon and forced down 24 raw oysters to boost his stamina. That girl was quite the catch, with a great figure and an open mind. She couldn't resist my cousin's sweet talk and a few dried-up roses his ex-girlfriend didn't want, and just like that, she gave him her whole heart, even handing over all her pocket money to him. My cousin is smart and bold enough to juggle several relationships without getting caught. He even dared to go at it in her father's study. Now that's a real man. I kept my head down, scribbling furiously, but couldn't hide the sarcasm in my eyes. This was the love Julia lost in her past life, the happy ever after that cost me my life. In the end, it just becomes gossip and a joke for others. If that's the case, I wish them a long and lasting relationship, forever locked together. When I returned home in the evening, the battlefield had already been cleaned up, but when Julia hugged my mom's arm and cooed about needing money for an out-of-town art trip, her collar accidentally opened, revealing the dense marks of affection. She still doesn't know that the camera in the study was fixed a few days ago. Their desperate passion and utter madness were all captured by the surveillance. All it would take is a single hint to my father, and her countless disgraceful acts would be exposed to the world. When that time comes, the one who'll face eternal damnation will be her alone. I smirked sarcastically, lowering my gaze, only to Meet Julia's eyes. Wendy, what are you laughing at? You can take the old lady's money and go on a field trip with your classmates, but when it's my turn, Mom refuses. Isn't it funny not being the favorite? The old lady favors you, and you're proud of it. You can keep flaunting it in front of me over and over again. How nice. She bit her lip, tears welling up in her eyes, like a delicate flower trembling in the morning mist, as if the scene in the study this afternoon, where I recklessly bit and choked the other person, was just my illusion. Fine, I admit it, I'm not as good as you, just an unloved pitiful worm. Okay, are you satisfied now? Tears streaming down, she turned and rushed into the room, burying herself under the covers and sobbing loudly. I clearly said nothing and did nothing, yet I've incurred public wrath. Mom's icy gaze fell upon my face, her high heels clicking rhythmically on the polished marble floor. As I saw her raised hand about to strike me again, I lifted my head with an innocent expression. Mom, let my sister go instead. Deduct the money from the refund of my piano lessons. Her raised hand froze midair as she looked at me in disbelief. After all, I treasured every penny Grandma left me. It was the only bright future left to me by the one person in this world who truly loved me. Mom, I don't want to make things difficult for you, or for Dad. I know how hard you both work to support us, but if my sister just wants to go sketching and studying, why can't you let her have this? There's still 10,000 left from the piano lessons you withdrew, right? Give it to her. I don't want her to misunderstand anything. After all, Mom's love for us has always been the same. My words, has always been the same, finally caused a fleeting moment of discomfort on the face of this mother who had always been as cold as frost toward me. So, she knew she was biased after all. How laughable. But I still have to support Julia. How could I not support someone who's completely focused on going on a honeymoon trip with her boyfriend? Before the scolding words my mother had stuck in her throat could fade away, my father's roar came from the room. Julia wants to take sleeping pills, though stopped by Dad. Mom was still badly frightened. You wretched child, are you trying to kill me? It's just 10,000 yuan, I'll give it to you. Every penny Mom earns is yours. You could take my life if you wanted, let alone these worldly possessions. As she spoke, large teardrops began streaming down her face. Dad's eyes also turned red with anxiety. You can't keep doing this. Dad's getting old and has a weak heart. You can't scare me like this anymore. But then he turned around and started yelling at me. Wendy, can't you just behave? Always stirring up trouble. Do you have to drive your sister to her death before you're satisfied? She's depressed because of you. What more do you want? My breath hitched. The storm had finally descended upon me. Julia somehow produced 2 depression test reports, then attempted suicide twice and ran away from home 3 times, solidifying her diagnosis of depression. My parents believed it wholeheartedly and treated her with utmost care, cradling her in their palms, terrified that in the blink of an eye she might shatter into pieces on the ground. She could get whatever she wanted, as if commanding the wind and rain. I was forced to live in a cramped storage room, wearing her old, discarded clothes, and even had to eat meals huddled in the kitchen to stay out of her sight. Once she tasted the benefits, she would have a depressive episode whenever she was unhappy, either sitting alone until late at night to startle our parents or cutting her wrists and swallowing pills, turning the household upside down. In the end, she got her way in everything, while I became the target of everyone's resentment, because only I, foolishly pointing at her again and again, shouted at my blind and deaf parents, saying she was faking it. Every time I said it, she would have a depression episode, and I would be scolded and punished by my parents. After too many punishments, the necklaces and jewelry my grandmother gave me became little trinkets for my parents to appease her. My tutoring classes and extracurricular activities also became stepping stones for her to pursue her dreams. The only thing I can hold on to now is the bank card my grandmother slipped into my hand, which will support me through college. To keep it, even if just temporarily, I must learn to bow my head lowered. I stood to the side like an unwanted outsider, watching helplessly as their family displayed their affection. Julia shot me a vicious glare before throwing herself into their arms, weeping as if her heart would break. Why are you still pressuring me? I already have depression, and you're still so biased. Do you really want me to die to be happy? For just a little money, you're willing to drive me to death. How cruel. Since having my sister was enough, why did you even give birth to me? My parents' faces were full of guilt, their words overflowing with tenderness, a stark contrast to their aggressive demeanor when facing me. Mom and Dad were wrong. It's just a field trip. Go if you want to. From now on, Mom and Dad will go along with whatever you want. Our baby, as long as you're healthy and happy, that's all that matters. When they looked up and saw me, their tone turned cold again. Get back to your room. Do you have to stand here and upset your sister like this? Why didn't you just die with that old bastard? Haven't you done enough damage to us already? I stood at the doorway, watching the inseparable trio with cold eyes, my heart a barren wasteland. In my past life, Juliet gave me away to that old bachelor. They could have saved me back then, after Julia's depression episode. They resolutely gave up on looking for me and instead accompanied Julia on leisure trips for recuperation while I was being pinned down and tormented by that pervert. They took the money my grandmother left for my college education to take Julia to see the flowers in J-City, wait for the golden sunrise over the mountains in Yunnan, and go skiing and ice sculpting in Harbin. When I was being starved and brutally beaten by that pervert, they took her on a flight abroad and made a bracelet from pearls they personally collected by the seaside in New Zealand. Even when I died, they were throwing her a grand birthday celebration. When people casually asked about me, their faces were full of disgust. Who knows which man she ran off with? Shameless thing. We wasted 20 years raising her. Closing the door, I withdrew from others' familial bonds and buried myself in the 5 years of college entrance exam questions, 3 years of simulation. In my past life, I missed the college entrance exam, leaving my life full of regrets. This time, I will seize the opportunity firmly. This time, I refuse to accept a broken home and parents who pretend to sleep and refuse to wake up. Julia finally got her wish to gather inspiration. In the latest photo posted on Bob's social media, she sits in his arms, her lips curved in a smile, her eyes brimming with happiness and contentment. The caption reads, "Out of all the waters in the world, I only want you, JJ." When copying someone else's text, I was too careless. The first draft still had WW as the signature. I shook my head with a smile. How much sincerity could there be from someone who treated her as a plaything? A few childish sweet nothings and some cheap roses became the love Julia couldn't forget. How laughable. The Chinese teacher just talked about puppy love in class, saying, "Early blossoms wither early. In the chilly spring, one should take root and absorb warmth, not compete in beauty. You wait till the branches are lush and the trunk soars into the clouds, then the blooming brilliance can paint half the sky red. What we have shouldn't be rushed. It will come at the most appropriate time." I couldn't agree more, curling my lips as I turned off my phone. The darkened screen still showed the text message from the most handsome guy in the next class, asking me out to a movie when I don't even have a path to stand out. What right do I have to reach the other shore of love? Lowering my head, I solved another difficult math problem. Though the progress is slow, the accuracy keeps improving. When I look up, it's already deep into the night, amidst the countless city lights. Not a single one stays lit for me, yet I've long ignited a blazing fire in my chest, waiting only for youth to burn out, so I can shout with all my might. I have no regrets. In my past life, my existence froze at the most beautiful age. Within the four walls of confinement, I never saw the vast sky. In this life, I will struggle to break free from the chains that bind me and charge toward a broader world. But my mother's slap came without warning. Hands that pick through trash are dirty. Not only did you steal Julia's clothes, now you dare to steal from my dowry. I'm giving you one last chance to return the gold necklace to me, otherwise, this family has no place for someone as grand as you. Her slap was delivered with full force, and even as my cheek quickly swelled red, she didn't stop pushing and shoving. She even whimpered with grievance. My fate is just bad. What should have come arrived late, and what shouldn't have come clung to me too early. Once again, she was blaming me for sneaking into her belly before she reached the legal marriage age, becoming a lifelong disgrace to her. Yet, my father, the very culprit behind this mistake, stood there shamelessly, hands on his hips like a judge, hurling insults at me. How could I have spawned something like you? Should have listened to your mother back then. Saving those few $1,000 wasn't worth it. Getting rid of you would have been simpler. Kneel down and apologize to your mother right now, then buy her a bigger, heavier gold necklace to make up for it. Covering my burning cheeks, I finally understood what had happened. My mom's gold necklace went missing, and without a second thought, they immediately blamed me. But I distinctly remember, just a few days ago, Julia bought Bob a designer scarf as a birthday gift. Where did that money come from? Yet my parents would never suspect their beloved daughter. They'd only pour all the dirty water on me. They even took this opportunity to force me to hand over the bank card my grandmother left me. Watching the surveillance footage at their bedroom door, I smiled. It's fine, Mom and Dad. I've already reported you to the police. I'm not afraid of having a record. If I really did it, I'd accept even a lifetime in prison. After all, the police won't shield anyone who commits a crime. Just a moment ago, the two who had been adamant about making me kneel were now frozen in place. They exchanged hesitant glances. Suppressing my sarcasm, I pointed at the surveillance camera by their door. You can check this. If even half my foot stepped into your room, I'll admit it. My mother frowned, threw out a threat. Just you wait, I'll make you regret this, and stormed into the room to make a call for confirmation. Julia, Mom isn't doubting you. I'm just asking, did you take the necklace from the drawer to wear? I don't mean anything else by it. It was always meant for you anyway, so it's fine if you took it. I was just worried there might have been a thief in the house. That's why I asked. It was Unclear what was said on the other end, but the two hung up the phone, and their expressions were far from pleasant when they came out. "What are you standing there for? Hurry up and call the police to explain. It was just a misunderstanding. Do you really want to send your sister to jail? I was the one who was wronged and slapped, yet they were the ones filled with rage. I will never receive their apology. They always act so self-righteous. As if they are forever the ones favored by reason. It's not impossible, but I'd like to live on campus to avoid similar misunderstandings in the future. Would that be all right? To avoid the endless depression and the spread of anger, I proactively applied to live on campus. After all, at home, I could hardly spread my wings, eager to rid their beloved daughter of trouble, and with my boarding expenses costing them nothing. They cursed me a few times as a troublemaker with too many quirks before letting me have my way. I moved into the dormitory as I wished, taking the property deed with me. I shamelessly begged the dorm supervisor and became roommates with the top girl in our class. This was my first step toward my dream. Leo would become the only graduating student in our city to be directly admitted to Peking University. In the final mock exam, he achieved a score infinitely close to perfect, setting a national record. I may not be able to stand on the shoulders of giants, but even being swept up in the wind they stir can send a tiny ant like me soaring. So, I followed the top student, learning her discipline and using her achievements to constantly push myself forward. Even a small improvement of 5 or 10 points is a big step toward your dream. I can't choose where I was born, but I can choose how to live the rest of my life. So, gritting my teeth and dragging my weary body, I inched forward, leaving all the storms of home behind me. The 2-week field trip passed in the blink of an eye, when Julia proudly showed off the vibrant spring scenery. I simply smiled, pulled out the notes I had painstakingly borrowed from the top student in our grade, and began copying them day and night without pause. After the first monthly exam following my rebirth, I realized my foundation was even weaker than I had imagined. The sleepless nights I endured for over 10 days weren't enough to erase the traces of 3 years of indulgence. My grades still lingered at the bottom, but youth is never short of drive. If 10 days aren't enough, there are still 10 more sets of 10 days for me to charge forward. As long as I don't give up until the very last moment, the outcome remains undecided, but there are those who refuse to accommodate me. The notes I meticulously organized and the past exam papers I collected were scattered in disarray across the floor. Julia sat on my bed with her legs crossed, her dirty shoe soles pressing against the freshly changed sheets. "Hey, where's the money that junk collector left for you? Lend me some. I'm in a hurry, I'll pay you back." She chewed gum in her mouth, her long legs swaying lightly. In just a month, she had picked up a repulsively vulgar and thuggish demeanor. I silently bent down to pick up the scattered papers from the ground, piecing together the chaos of my life one sheet at a time, yet she deliberately stepped on my hand as I gathered the papers, grinding it down mercilessly, not giving it to me. "Saving it for your coffin. I'm also the old woman's granddaughter, just because she took you in doesn't mean all the money should be yours alone. Give me half, and I won't bother you anymore. How about that?" She kicked my documents carelessly, her eyes filled with arrogant condescension. Her grandmother, she never once called her grandma, always referring to her as that old thing or the trash picker. Even when grandma passed away, she refused to wear mourning clothes. What right does she have to call herself grandma's granddaughter? And that money, it was grandma. Knowing full well how my parents were, who saved it as emergency funds, she did it so I wouldn't wither away in what should have been my most vibrant years, all because of my parents' favoritism. Yet she herself struggled so hard, doing the dirtiest, most exhausting work as a restroom cleaner, and even collecting plastic bottles and cardboard everywhere, just to afford my education and living expenses. Yet she sold the old house for 200,000 yuan just to leave me a way out, keeping the money solely for me. In the end, she broke ties with my parents, died sick in bed, and still earned their resentment. How could I possibly give them the love and protection the old lady had given me? Seeing me unmoved, she pressed harder with her foot, but I suddenly pushed back, making her stagger. "You've got some nerve, daring to push me." She raised her hand to slap me, but I grabbed her wrist. "There's no surveillance in my room. Since you love to falsely accuse me anyway, how about I really make you bleed?" This time, a flicker of fear flashed in her eyes, but she stiffened her neck and cursed, "You dare lay a hand on me, and I'll slap, slap." 2 sharp slaps left her utterly stunned. "You'll just run crying to the wall, tattling that I'm bullying you, getting me beaten, punished to kneel, even expelled from school. Is that it? It's fine, I'll always have a chance to kill you where they can't see." Her pupils contracted, but she didn't dare to respond. I gripped her chin, smiling viciously. "After all, those who have nothing to lose fear nothing." trading one life for another. I don't lose out, do I? She bit her lip, glaring at me fiercely, but in the end, she didn't dare to challenge me further. The corner of my mouth lifted as I raised my phone, the scandalous scene on the screen making her expression change drastically. She reached out to snatch it, but I easily dodged. Don't think stealing my phone will solve anything. My friends and I have set up scheduled posts on social media. Unless I cancel them, they'll be sent out every weekend. Go ahead and try to lay a hand on me. Your reputation being ruined is the least of your worries, but if Bob finds out you set him up to rot in prison, do you think he'll let you off easy? Julia was finally frightened, her pretty face turning deathly pale. What do you want? I pout my lips, looking utterly innocent. I just want to keep to myself and get through the college entrance exams peacefully. Once the exams are over, I'll delete everything for good. She had no choice but to agree to repay you. Let me also show you a way out. Next summer, the school is organizing a study trip to France, and the deposit is due in a few days. Don't you really want to go? From what I know about our parents, they probably won't refuse you. Her eyes lit up, and she gave me a wary glance. What do you want in return? I shook my head. Nothing. I just want to help fulfill your love. If I took something in return, the nature of this would change. If she bites back and then calls the police, I'll be charged with threats and intimidation. Someone as pure and timid as me would never threaten or intimidate. It's just self-defense. She can't bite me. That night, Julia's depression flared up again, and she smashed everything in the room. Her parents were so frantic they almost called ambulance. She broke down sobbing. What's wrong with never having been to France? So they're rich and that makes them special. What gives them the right to look down on me? It's just 50,000 yuan, isn't it? It's not like I won't be able to earn it when I grow up. Who gave them the right to trample on my dignity? This time, I'm going no matter what. If I can't reclaim my pride, I'd rather die. Her acting was superb, banging her head against the wall in madness, crying until she convulsed, making her parents sink deeper and deeper, from 10,000 to 50,000, without hesitation. Julia, who gradually tested her parents' limits, didn't hold back. Instead, she pushed further, demanding more and more. But her parents were just ordinary working-class folks in this small, remote town, struggling to save even 10,000 a month combined. They were left coughing up blood repeatedly, their strength waning. They turned their gaze toward my door with a cold expression. I tightly clutched the bank card Grandma left me and firmly shut the slightly ajar door. The deeper they sink, the more they trap only themselves to drag me down with them. They're not worthy. Using the hard earned money their parents' favor spat out, Julia and her true love built a love nest near the school, to spend more time together. Arriving late and leaving early had become the norm. I moved into the dormitory, and without Julia bothering me every now and then, I spent all my time pestering Leo, the top student in our grade, asking questions, borrowing notes, and being a simp. She was aloof and solitary, dressed in designer brands yet without a trace of the arrogance typical of a rich young lady. Her buzz-cut short hair only accentuated her sharp, intimidating eyes that seemed to keep everyone at arm's length. Everyone else was afraid of her, but I wasn't. I admire her courage and envy her self-discipline. While others were coasting by relying on their family backgrounds, she was still burning the midnight oil solving problems, determined to secure a solid first place in the entire school and smoothly gain admission to Peking University. Leo, please, just help me with one more problem. Just one, okay. She was utterly annoyed and almost wished she could move out of the dorm. He casually picked up the thermos, thinking to use the excuse of getting water to escape from me, but before his but could leave the chair, he froze in place. The thermos was already filled with water at the perfect temperature. Was it you? I nodded. In return, is this okay? I tactfully took over all her chores, fetching water, washing dishes, and even cleaning the entire dorm, scrubbing her socks until they were spotlessly white. In my past life at WS prison, I endured endless hard labor and humiliation. These trivial tasks were nothing in comparison, yet she still felt ashamed and embarrassed, reluctantly granting me just 10 minutes each day, whether to ask questions or borrow notes, but strictly forbidding me from touching her belongings again. I agreed readily. Who would refuse such an offer that required no work yet brought benefits? Only a fool would say no, yet even those 10 minutes she casually spared me turned out to be a golden opportunity. When I laid out the questions I had prepared in advance, even she was taken aback. Red circles marked the problems I couldn't grasp, yellow ones highlighted doubts about solution steps, and black question flags indicated gaps in foundational knowledge. I genuinely want to learn. Look, these books are all intact. No longer are they the torn and tattered remnants from Julia's repeated depressive episodes. Her shocked gaze lingered on my face for a long moment before finally shifting away. If you truly want to learn, I can help you, but your foundation is too weak. Please solidify the basics before coming to me with questions. Okay, all right. Perhaps surprised by my decisiveness and humble determination, the words she had prepared to mock me with were left unspoken. Getting guidance from an expert is certainly much better than randomly flipping through books at this stage. To grasp the fundamentals, I studied alongside her, comparing our approaches. While she repeatedly practiced past CT4 exam papers, I was memorizing vocabulary lists until they were worn out. While she was reading computer books, I could also work on some physics problems. When she scored over 90 in advanced mathematics, I could pass my math exams too, but it wasn't enough, still not enough, so, while she slept, I plugged in my earphones to listen to English audio, while she stood on the rooftop, letting the wind blow through her hair as she gazed into the distance. I was buried in my chemistry papers, struggling to make sense of them, when she argued with her family over the phone, slamming pots and bowls in frustration. I was reviewing my collection of wrong answers yet again. If you want to cry, just cry. There's no one else here. Yet the corners of her lips curled into a smile, one that was bleak and desolate. Why should I cry? They're the blind and foolish ones who deserve to be slapped by the truth and come crying to apologize to me. Turns out, even the heiress of a wealthy family can feel utterly insignificant when overshadowed by her brother's favoritism. Afraid that Grandpa might leave the business to me, they locked me in the villa when he was too ill to get up but wanted to see me. They only let me out after he took his last breath. Their good son got everything they wanted, but the one I loved most passed away with regrets. I will never forgive them, not ever. Favoritism in wealthy families can be deadly. The hideous scar on her thigh was left by last year's car accident. I was in so much pain, yet they just brushed it off with an apology for him. Even seeking justice became my fault, simply because no one stood up for me. Wendy, live on with all your might. Even a lonely tree can hold up its own sky. I nodded vigorously and studied even harder. In the next monthly exam, I moved up 12 places. No longer at the bottom of the class, she leaned back in her seat, curled her lips, and gave me a thumbs up. The March sunlight streamed through the window, casting sharp shadows on her angular face, and I seemed to see the glint of an unsheathed sword. That was her and me, our uniquely fierce youth. But I knew I had to go to college, to escape everything in this city that held me captive, and my current grades were far from enough. I will follow in her footsteps, step by step moving forward, conquering one obstacle after another that fate has placed before me, until Julia's homeroom teacher came to our class, with a face full of concern. She asked me about Julia's situation. It turned out she hadn't been to school for a week. I certainly knew. She had already openly moved in with her true love. I even saw her once on my way home from night study, sitting behind him on his roaring motorcycle, a crimson cigarette dangling from her lips, laughing wildly and unrestrained. When she noticed me, her eyes were full of mockery, mocking my youth as dull and tedious, struggling in an inescapable swamp, stagnant as a pool of dead water, far less vibrant than her own 18 years. But that night, because I had passed my math exam for the first time, my heart felt like it was filled with boiling water, surging with huge waves of joy. That kind of profound happiness was something she would never understand. Faced with teacher Lisa's questioning, I feigned ignorance and answered firmly, I've been living at school for a month now. It's been a long time since I went home. As I spoke, I deliberately raised my hand slightly, revealing the frayed cuffs of my washed-out sweatshirt, shut down teacher Lisa's persistent questions before they could even be asked. This was all thanks to my parents' favoritism. More than once, they chose to attend Julia's parent-teacher meetings while not even glancing at me in the neighboring building. When the homeroom teacher stopped them at the school gate and asked if they couldn't spare at least one person to attend my meeting, they glanced at me hiding behind the teacher. To cover their shame and divert attention, they lashed out at me. With grades like hers, we'd be too ashamed to show our faces. With grades like that, you might as well be stupid to death. Even raising a pig would be better than raising her. Even when the homeroom teacher criticized them for not being qualified parents, to save face and vent their anger, they slapped me in public without hesitation, yelling that they shouldn't have given birth to such a burden. The homeroom teacher shouted at their retreating figures, "Your daughter doesn't have a single complete book or notebook, shouldn't we discuss how she's supposed to study in such an environment?" They didn't even pause their steps, tossing back, "Let her study however she wants. A hopeless case like her isn't worth our lives." In that lifetime, I felt ashamed of my parents' hatred, but not in this one. Even made a big show of it, moving into the dormitory, wore the worst clothes, ate the cheapest meals, made sure the whole school knew I was the unloved one at home. Even during the critical final year of high school when I was Forced to live on campus, victims should never feel ashamed, because from start to finish, it was never our fault. Teacher Lisa was quite surprised, at such a critical time, and with home so close. Why are you boarding at school? I imitated Julia's manner, lowering my head with a look of grievance. My parents said it's to avoid me upsetting Julia. She was stunned and let me go awkwardly, as soon as I turned around. Teacher Lisa called my parents, but my parents brushed it off with the excuse that the child's health is the most important, yet I knew they were scrambling to gather the treatment money Julia demanded, so much so that Julia's blatant cohabitation with a hoodlum became the talk of the entire school, with only our parents remaining unaware. That was until Julia crossed the line, making outrageous demands from our parents. It was the first time our parents came to school, specifically to wait for me. The sunset dyed half the sky red, yet even on a windless evening in May, the atmosphere felt suffocatingly oppressive. They stood there by the edge of the playground, their faces devoid of any warmth. Give me the bank card your grandma gave you. We'll use it for an emergency. Consider it a loan, Dad said with righteous confidence. Mom chimed in, with grades like these, you won't get into college anyway. Keeping it for yourself is useless. We're your parents, so it's our duty to safeguard it for you. Hurry up and hand it over. Julia is waiting and needs it urgently. I curled the corners of my lips. The day I've been waiting for in this lifetime has finally arrived. In my past life, they pinned me to the cold floor and ransacked the entire house, but never found that bank card. Finally, they surrounded me without giving a drop of water, forcing me to surrender my weapons for 3 whole days, handing over my bank card and the rest of my life with both hands. I gripped the report card in my arms and glanced back at the classroom. Classmates and teachers leaned over the railing, craning their necks to encourage me to hand it in, because in just 3 months, I had gone from the bottom of the class to the top 30. Although I only ranked 29th, I stayed up until 1 a.m. and got up at 5:30 a.m. for morning study, surpassing even the diligent top student, and finally earned the recognition of my classmates and teachers. They no longer mocked me but instead gave me warm applause, because they understood the bitterness and determination behind my all-out effort when I had no one to rely on. So, knowing my parents rarely came to see me, they slipped my report card into my hand. The homeroom teacher said, "Let your parents see how amazing Wendy is." My classmates pushed me out the door. Go on, go on. They must miss you too. When they see this report card, they'll realize their mistake. If it were my parents, they'd be overjoyed to the point of madness. A prodigal who returns is more precious than gold. As long as you keep trying, they'll eventually see it. Their kindness and friendliness were like one lamp after another on a lonely road, guiding me to run faster and faster until I could finally seize control of my own life. But the moment the report card was handed over, my impatient father snatched it away, tore it into pieces, and with a sweep of his hand, scattered them everywhere. Such shameful grades, and you dare ask me to sign them? Hand over the bank card quickly. Julia is in urgent need. The flurry of scattered fragments couldn't shake my numb heart, but it poured cold water on the eager expectations of my teachers and classmates. Even Leo, who had always kept to himself, stood with his hands in his pockets, leaning against the railing at the corner, his brow furrowed. I raised my head and looked them in the eye for the first time. Sorry, kind souls behind me. With a slight lift of my brow, I began my counterattack, but I could still make it to college if I tried harder. Why should I throw away my future and sacrifice everything for your beloved daughter, just because I grew up in a garbage dump? The two of them froze, but I didn't let them off, continuing to mock. Or is it because I was born from trash? 2 powder kegs were ignited, their faces changing dramatically as they looked at me in disbelief. You little bitch, what did you say? I tilted my head, looking utterly innocent. I said you're trash. What? Do I need to throw you into the garbage bin to prove it? My mother was so furious she went berserk, shoving me hard, and I took the opportunity to collapse onto the floor. I never should have given birth to you, you little piece of trash. Before marriage, I should have strangled you in that rented room right after you were born, instead of keeping you around to ruin my life forever. David, look at this. This is the kind of child your mother raised. I told you back then not to have a baby, but you insisted, and now, after letting your mother raise it, we end up with this kind of disaster. It would have been better to strangle it at birth. Her eyes were red with rage, but I remained unmoved. Then why didn't you do that? Do you think I wanted to come out of your belly either? 2 pieces of trash who don't deserve to be parents. My dad, already flustered by my mom's tears, saw my defiant and fearless expression and completely lost his composure. He slapped me hard across the face. You've lost your mind. If you don't kneel and apologize to your mom today, and hand over the bank card, we'll disown you. Covering my face, I smiled brightly. Great, without trash parents like you, I wouldn't be trash either. How wonderful. My dad was shocked. I think you've been corrupted at school. Hanging out with shady people has messed up your brain. Come on, let's go see your teacher. I'd like to see how your teacher managed to produce a student like you. With that, without a second thought, they grabbed my sleeve and dragged me toward the office. Caught off guard, I was pulled to the ground. My bare arms scraped against the playground surface, tearing the skin. The pain made me gasp, but they paid no attention. Grabbing me, she shoved me with brute force and threw me into the homeroom teacher's office. Naturally, my eyes reddened. I hung my head, hesitating to speak, pitifully seeking sympathy in front of the teacher and classmates. My mother tearfully listed my 10 major sins: disobedient, inconsiderate, unfilial, troublesome, cunning and slick, malicious, lacking ambition. Every word that could belittle a 20-year-old girl was used on me by my own mother. My father also slammed the table and demanded answers from the homeroom teacher. Is this how the school educates its students? Character comes before academics. If she can't even be a decent person, what's the point of continuing her education? I'm taking her home today. Get the paperwork ready. This was their usual tactic, using my education to pressure me. After all, 9 years of compulsory education had been completed, and they could terminate my high school studies. Being taken back home, I was like a lamb to the slaughter. In the past, I would have lowered my head and begged pitifully, hoping they would show mercy and let me finish my education, but now, I no longer need to. The ID card was placed on the desk, and with tears in my eyes, I said weakly, Mom, Dad, I'm already over 20 years old. I can decide my own life. The money Grandma left me is enough for my education. Besides, I haven't used your money all these years. Didn't you both stop wanting me as a burden long ago? My mom completely lost it, crying and making a scene, even throwing the homeroom teacher's textbook, demanding I hand over the money my grandmother left me, to avoid giving the money to me for safekeeping. You'll stop at nothing. Today, whether you want to or not, you're giving it to me. Despite the homeroom teacher's kind words and the classmates' collective criticism, nothing could stop their outrageous behavior. After cursing loudly, they even started to get physical. Enough, this is my workplace. If you want to make a scene, please leave. My parents paused, then turned to me, breathing heavily as they pressed. Wendy, are you really going to cut ties with us? Tears welled up in my eyes. It's not that either. I'm also going to sue you for domestic violence. The police arrived quite suddenly, though I had reported it in advance. Rushing behind them, I pointed at the teacher and classmates and said, Uncle Police Officer, my parents are abusing me at home. My teachers and classmates can all testify to this. For nearly half a year, I've been laying the groundwork with tales of woe, all leading up to this moment. The purity and sense of justice in this young person overflow at this very instant. They all point at my parents, standing up for justice on my behalf. The bruises on her arm and face are still there. He hit her right in front of us. Who knows how much worse it was behind closed doors? Not only was there domestic violence, but he also confined her at home against her will. It's hard to imagine what might have happened next. The physical injuries are one thing, but the psychological trauma is even greater. Look at this. The homeroom teacher pulled out the diary I had accidentally left behind, which detailed the scorn and hostility I endured over the past 3 years while living under someone else's roof. For instance, my birth was a mistake made by my parents being too young, yet they didn't blame themselves for the error. Instead, they resented me, the unwelcome intruder who came out of nowhere, take my sudden return, disrupting their perfect family of 3, turning me into the despised black sheep. In front of me, they repeatedly said, why did we even have you? You might as well have died early and been reborn. Or how I became their family's maid, only deemed worthy of sleeping on a recliner in the storage room. Called the little trash by my own sister. My mother's curses, my father's reproaches, and my sister's deliberate targeting filled an entire notebook. On the last page, I even vaguely mentioned, is the only way to escape all of this by freeing oneself. The ink, smudged by water stains, formed blobs, as if they were my teardrops. The homeroom teacher in charge pitied me, my kind classmates sympathized with me, but only my parents argued fiercely with the police officer who tried to mediate. That's not true at all, she's just spreading rumors. We treated her well with good food and drink, yet she stole our bank card and refused to return it. When asked, now that she's over 20, she should face criminal responsibility, arrest her and teach her a lesson, yet their words, amidst the collective testimonies and rebuttals from teachers and classmates, vanished like clay oxen into the sea, stirring not a single ripple. Even the female police officer who came to mediate was shocked when she saw the blood dripping from my arm. Domestic violence is illegal. Even from biological parents. We gave birth to her, why can't we discipline We'll hit her right now, just watch. My father, as he had done countless times before, tried to maintain his patriarchal dignity and pride by slapping me, but this time, he clearly miscalculated, as he grabbed my hair and slammed me into the wall. The male officer immediately threw him over his shoulder, and the stubborn ones were also taken to the police station for education. This is the first gift I gave them in return. On the day I finally stood up, wipe your tears, you're really good at pretending. I stared blankly at Leo, my heart tightening. She curled the corners of her lips and smiled. I can read lips, though the playground is far. I didn't miss a single word of your conversation. A gentle breeze brushed through her long hair, carrying a hint of boldness that tangled my heart in panic. Will you expose me? I would have exposed you long ago if that was my intention, just protecting myself. No innocent people were harmed, so what does it matter? Besides, if it were me, I'd probably fight to the death. The icy coldness in her eyes startled me. Fight to the death. I'm no different. I took a deep breath, only then noticing the fine beads of sweat on my palms. Just one more month, and I'll be free. Leo, do you think I can make it? She put on her headphones and started listening to the English CT6 practice. The evening glow fell on her face, illuminating the determination of the young girl. Of course you can. Success should belong to people like us, but so should the pain. Sarah and David, who had been released, came looking for me more than once, but I always managed to avoid them with the help of my classmates. Eventually, on a night during self-study, they dragged me into a dark alley, trying to hide. If you don't return my money and the property deed to me today, I'll beat you to death. As his slap landed, I crashed headfirst into the wall, blood streaming down my face. The next second, police sirens blared. My classmates had long been wary of these two hungry wolves and had called the police the moment they menacingly approached me. This time, it wasn't just about being educated for them. I'm going to see you and make sure you go to jail. After repeated legal education from the police officers, the two arrogant individuals finally became afraid. We're your parents. Hitting and scolding you is all for your own good. Is this really such a big deal? At most, I won't hit you anymore. We're struggling too, overwhelmed by work and life. Your sister's health is poor, and your grades are dragging us down. What else can we do? They recounted their hardships with tears and sniffles, as if their lives were in shambles and the only way to improve was by beating and abusing me, but I watched them coldly, completely unfazed. The play had ended before I finally handed over a piece of paper. I truly wish to sever ties with you, but the law doesn't permit it, even though you don't deserve to be called my parents. So, regarding the house Grandma bought for you, I'll relinquish my share, but you'll have to sign an IOU for 400,000 yuan. When you try to force me to support you in the future, I'll force you to repay that 400,000. How does that sound? No other meaning, just that our bond has run its course. Let's each find our own peace and leave each other alone. They still wanted to hesitate, so I turned and walked away. I bumped into Julia head-on, and in the face of her hatred, I smiled. Not cutting ties isn't so bad either. The house Grandma left behind still has my share, worth at least a few $100,000. She gritted her teeth in anger, while I laughed until tears streamed down my face in a deserted corner. It took me 20 years to cut this umbilical cord. On the day I signed the IOU and severed our blood ties, David and Sarah's house was also transferred to Julia's name. Not afraid of you playing tricks, the house is now Julia's. They were smug, unaware they had walked into a dead end, one I had painstakingly designed for them. Julia's love couldn't be sustained by mere affection, but she couldn't bear to see her lover toil away at menial jobs. Under the encouragement of her party-loving friends, she turned to online loans. Money that could be obtained with just a few taps on her phone seemed effortless to get, and naturally, she spent it without hesitation. She bought piles of luxury cosmetics and clothes. She hosted lavish banquets multiple times, and amid the chorus of big sis, her vanity was immensely gratified. She already felt she had reached the dazzling peak of life. Even Bob put his arm around her and said, "In this lifetime, you'll only have one sister-in-law, and that's Julia. Whoever dares to disrespect her, I'll break your arms and legs." She was smug with success, having gained both fame and fortune, until the compounding interest on the loans grew to an amount she could no longer bear. This current house has truly relieved her urgent needs. My double dealing was merely to leave them both with nothing. In the end, they would rather die than give me even a single door or window of this house. My roommate brought me a small cake with candles. "Congratulations, you've been reborn. From now on, today will be your birthday every year." The tears I had held back for so long fell freely in the glow of the lit candles. At last, I've stood up and truly come alive. It took a lifetime and half a year more. With everyone caught up in their own busy affairs, they temporarily have no time for me, just in time for me to smoothly take the college entrance exams. Julia, unaware that her doom is near, struts up to me, flaunting her superiority. You're so stupid, choosing to get kicked out on your own. Heard you're quite capable, barely scraping into a second-tier college. Congrats, the trash king can finally close his eyes. I put on my headphones to listen to the audio, ignoring her taunts, which only infuriated her, hiding from what, too ashamed to face me. Who told me I was lucky enough to accidentally get depression? They just have to work their butts off for me, I smirked. So what about you? Who are you working for, Bob? She looked at me with pity, full of disdain. How lame is that? If you've never been in love, don't talk nonsense. Okay, that's mutual devotion for love, sacrificing everything. So cringy. I nodded. Oh, so do your parents know you sold their house for true love? Will they? Bless you. Her breath hitched, her expression changing. What do you know? It's only a matter of time before they recognize and accept me. Unlike you, trash, you'll be despised and kicked out for 10 lifetimes. Don't forget to delete the video after the college entrance exams. She bumped into me and brushed past, yet, through her thin blouse, I caught a glimpse of her slightly swollen belly. Oh, she's also carrying a piece of premature trash in her belly that will drag them all to eternal damnation. I know she's already convinced Bob to teach me a lesson after I delete the video. They've even arranged the truck to take me to WS for crying. The same experience, the same brutality. They want to replay it all on me again, but this time, I didn't let them have their way, because after all my efforts, that old pervert finally came to H-City and found Bob. You live in luxury in the city, enjoying all the comforts, while I starve and freeze in the village, without even someone to warm my bed. That just doesn't seem right, does it? A son's good fortune shouldn't mean his father's suffering. The moment I saw the birthmark behind Bob's ear from outside the study, I was certain of his connection to the old pervert. Julia alone, even if she had the intention, didn't have the capability to send me into the mountains. In the end, it must have been Bob's idea and connections in this lifetime. Despite Bob's sweet talk, he never managed to send the old pervert back to the mountains. Because the old pervert took a fancy to Julia. Of course, it wasn't by chance either, at the urging of her little brother. Julia had a stunning rose tattooed on her chest, which blossomed right on the old pervert's heart. In my past life, he used an embroidery needle to prick rose after rose into my skin, ruining my entire chest and back, all to satisfy his twisted desires. In this life, I gave this flower to Julia. When he pinned the pregnant Julia on the sofa and savagely tore at that rose, he was caught red-handed by Bob, who had just returned. Father and son wrestled violently. The old pervert's authority was challenged, and in his frenzied rage, he actually stabbed Bob with a knife. At that moment, the police burst through the door and, amidst a pool of blood, took away the nightmare of my past life. As for why, of course, it was my report. The incomplete remains of another body in the pigpen are the irrefutable evidence of his crime. It is said that the remains were actually those of Bob's own mother. A poor woman sold into the mountains, after giving birth to Bob, was imprisoned until she nearly went insane. She tried to take a kitchen knife to end both her life and the old bachelor's, but was instead beaten to death by him and buried beneath the pigpen. Bob witnessed the death of his biological mother with indifference, even joining his father in cursing. That whore who abandoned her husband and child deserved to be beaten to death. A woman should sacrifice everything for her family, including her life. After being stabbed, he finally chose to place justice above family loyalty. The old pervert faced combined punishment for multiple crimes, awaiting a lifetime behind bars. The police repeatedly investigated whether Bob was an accomplice, draining his energy and keeping him from causing me trouble for the time being. In the stolen time, I pushed myself harder to move forward. Time flew by, and the college entrance exam was just around the corner. Leo's early admission notice arrived, and she was taken back to the family mansion by her relatives. The spacious dormitory was left with only me. Before leaving, she handed me her notes and past exam papers. I finished studying these in my first year of high school. I think you might find them useful. Her figure grew smaller in the distance. Surrounded by chauffeurs and housekeepers, I lowered my head and opened my notebook, where words were written on the title page. Breaking free from shackles is just around the corner. The world is worth it, and so are you. My eyes welled up with tears, and I lowered my head again, fiercely tackling 2 sets of practice exam papers. On the day of the college entrance exam, the classroom doorway was crowded with mothers and cheongsams and fathers holding flowers and banners. I clutched the bank card in my arms and silently repeated to myself, "Grandma, having you is enough for me." With determined steps, I walked into the examination hall as I had wished. This time, I held my fate firmly in my own hands. Sweating for 2 days, my hand trembled as I put down the final stroke before Rushing out of the exam hall and collapsing onto my dorm bed, the college entrance exam questions were easier than I expected. Getting into a second-tier university is guaranteed, and with some luck, I might even make it to a first-tier one. Half the weight on my shoulders was lifted, but the other half still rested on Julia, what they owe me, from past lives to this one. It's time to pay it all back. This moment is just perfect. Hello, is this the police? I'd like to report a theft. My grandmother's jewelry is missing. While the police were at my home collecting evidence, the surveillance footage from David's study was finally brought to light. The surprise and gift I prepared for them. They should be thrilled. She handed over the jewelry left to me by my grandmother, and only then did David and Sarah storm off to Julia's rented apartment. Julia, with her big belly, lay on Bob's lap eating grapes. What's there to be afraid of? Mom and Dad only have me as their daughter, so the house will be mine eventually, since it's mine, and I'm already an adult. Of course I can sell it freely. Besides, raising a child costs money. The remaining $100,000 isn't much, but luckily their salaries are decent. With them subsidizing us $10,000 a month, we can manage. Bob planted a loud kiss on her cheek. You're the best, honey, but would your parents be willing to give us $10,000 every month? Julia pouted, her face full of disdain. What's the big deal? I can just fake another depressive episode. If needed, they always fall for that trick anyway. From now on, let them work hard to earn money for our family of 3. We'll just focus on living our happy little life in peace. Sarah could no longer contain herself. She kicked open the slightly ajar door, trembling as she pointed at Julia, her eyes filled with utter shock. You wicked creature, is this how you've been manipulating me, for the sake of this long-haired ghost? You'd betray me and your father. Now you even want my life. David's eyes also turned red. Shameless disgrace. Getting pregnant with a bastard before even turning 19, why don't you just die? Julia, who had been initially shocked, realized her disguise was exposed and simply stopped pretending. Am I embarrassing myself? Weren't you about the same age when you had that little trash? Why don't you call yourselves shameless and disgraceful? At least I did it out of love, genuinely wanting to give my baby a home, unlike you, who gave birth but didn't raise, unworthy of being called parents. That little trash who pushed around was worse off than a beggar, slapping and forcing him to kneel at every turn. Wasn't he just some lowly servant from a landlord's house? David and Sarah were so furious they could barely stand, but Julia didn't back down an inch and continued, since you've all heard it, I won't hide it from you anymore. This rental is too small for a family of 3 to live in. Rent us a bigger place. You can afford this rent. Give me some money for baby formula each month, and we'll settle the rest later. If you want me to acknowledge you, you should show some sincerity. David and Sarah couldn't hold back any longer and rushed forward to slap Julia twice. Julia, who had never suffered any grievances before, quickly got into a scuffle with them. Amid the pushing and shoving, Julia hit the corner of the table, and a pool of blood spread beneath her. Bob had long since decided that Julia was his woman. Seeing his woman beaten and their child lost, he was instantly consumed with rage. He immediately lifted a chair and smashed David to the ground, continuing to beat him until his head was covered in blood. Refusing to stop, the ambulance was stuck at the end of the road under construction and couldn't get through. In the end, Julia's treatment was delayed, the child was lost, and her uterus had to be removed. Meanwhile, David suffered severe head trauma and became vegetative. Amid the chaos, Sarah sent the video from the study to the family group chat. Their daughter, once cherished as pure and flawless, the epitome of beauty, was now utterly humiliated. Julia broke down in tears and, disregarding her barely recovered health, went to confront Sarah. In the hospital stairwell, the mother and daughter came to blows, with none of their former loving mother-dutiful daughter scenes remaining. Whether by accident or on purpose, Sarah was pushed down the stairs by Julia. Left bleeding and unconscious from the head injury, terrified, she immediately fled the hospital and found Bob hiding in his younger brother's rented apartment. 2 people with no place to stand conspired and fled to Myanmar overnight to do business and make a fortune. As for the outcome, I saw it in the news 2 years later. The female corpse, hollowed out and tortured to death, was Julia. I heard the limbs of the body were incomplete, having lived those 2 years by the skin of her teeth. It must have been truly horrific. After Bob had been used to the fullest, he was forever sealed in concrete. Having committed all manner of evil deeds, they met with a fitting retribution. Such was their end. After I entered university, Sarah sent someone to find me. By that time, she was already bedridden with paralysis, having lost her house and daughter, as well as a husband who rotted to death in bed due to her inability to care for him. She thought of me again. She wanted to use the debt of giving birth to me to force me to drop out of school and return home to take care of her. Even To support her until her death, the unscrupulous internet celebrities, eager for attention, set up their cameras outside my dormitory, waving the banner of justice, as if they couldn't wait to shoot me full of holes and leave me battered and bloody. But that IOU, along with countless classmates and teachers from my alma mater, stood up to speak the truth for me. The surging waves hadn't even rolled in before they recoiled, slamming Sarah dead in the basement. She finally lowered her head in apology, begging on camera to see me, but I didn't go. Scrolling through the messages on my phone, my heart remained unsettled for a long time. The son of H City's richest man was imprisoned after being reported for group drug use, losing his inheritance rights to a billion-dollar fortune. So, Leo was willing to follow them back only after confirming the path beneath his feet, then turning around to deliver a crushing blow. In wealthy families, a son who has been imprisoned is already excluded from the list of potential heirs, and she, the only outstanding daughter, naturally became the sole heir. This girl, gazing into the distance in the wind, ultimately grasped everything that belonged to her. A month later, I received a call from the H City Public Security Bureau. Sarah was dead. They concluded that Sarah, like a rat crossing the street, was hunted down and surrounded, cursed and reviled, becoming the city of H's most notorious pest. No caregiver was willing to take her case, alone and struggling to get out of bed. She fell to the ground, hitting the back of her head. The bruising spread, and she died that same day. My grudge with them ended completely the day I signed Sarah's death certificate. Standing before Sarah's grave, I smiled. There aren't that many coincidences in the world, only my deliberate actions. Wishing you all the best. Reunited as a family. 6 months later, I visited Leo's Peking University and met the wind that had accompanied me all along the way. She had grown out her hair, poised and noble, standing radiantly in the crowd, her brilliance impossible to conceal. She gave me a big hug and a thick notebook, smiling brightly. Congratulations, work a little harder, I'll be waiting for you in Beijing. A life without obstacles isn't entirely smooth either. There's still the struggle of climbing upward. I believe in you, you can do it. At the end of the notebook, there was a receipt for an expensive piano tucked inside. Chase your dreams, no matter how late it is. Yes, I still have my piano dream. Take one step, and there are countless more outside. Life is a constant struggle, and youth without regrets is the reward. After hearing the story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you like this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.